Okay, so now that we've talked about simple schedules, um, we're about to move on to compound schedules. But first, let's take a look at what a non-contingent reinforcement schedule is like. If you haven't seen the movie Office Space, I encourage you to give it a shot. Moving on, other schedules, compound schedules. These consist of various combinations of those simple schedules. Um, in a multiple schedule, the behavior is under the influence of two or more simple schedules, each associated with a particular stimulus. You may be reinforced for doing something 10 minutes only when a red light is on, though. In contrast, you could be reinforced for doing something for 10 minutes while a yellow light is on. A mixed schedule, the third one, is the same as a multiple schedule except that there are no stimuli like red lights or yellow lights associated with the change in reinforcement contingencies. In a chain schedule, reinforcement is delivered only on completion of the last in a series of schedules. In the case of pigeon pecking on a chain, fixed ratio of 10 times, fixed interval of 15 minutes, and variable ratio averaging 20 effects, it will get reinforced after the final 20 effects. Okay, so it must complete the whole chain before it receives the final reinforcement. Okay. Normally there is a signal that the contingency has changed, such as the color of the disc the pigeons are supposed to pick. A lot of studies are done with animals, obviously rats, pigeons, dogs, and pigeons are often or asked to peck a disc, a round thing on a wall, normally of different colors. Most reinforcement schedules involve one individual or animal. A cooperative schedule, however, is different. It may involve two or more individuals both performing behaviors in order to receive a reinforcement. In a cooperative schedule, the reinforcement that one subject gets is partly dependent on the behavior of the other subject. So I used to play tennis with this guy who was not as good as I was. Although I could play really hard and we were more likely to win or be reinforced, reinforcement was much more likely if I was playing with a different partner who could play just as hard and as well as I did. Concurrent schedules allow for two schedules to occur at once. I may be reinforced for practicing basketball for 30 minutes or making 50 shots, whichever comes first. Okay, so what is this cartoon about? Sometimes I think that the surest sign that intelligent life exists elsewhere in the universe is that none of it has tried to contact us. Okay, and this just simply illustrates a funny cartoon and that he is learning through patterns, um, and will notice those patterns to behave in one way or another. So here we get to scheduling issues. The partial reinforcement effect refers to the tendency of behavior that has been maintained on an intermittent schedule to be more resistant to extinction in behavior than behavior that has been on continuous reinforcement. All right? Think about that for a minute. It makes sense. Something that has been intermittently reinforced is harder to extinguish than something that is continuously reinforced. Think about that you would automatically know that the reinforcements had stopped coming in a continuous reinforcement schedule, whereas in an intermittent schedule, you might have an extinction burst. You might wait a long time even before that extinction burst. The discrimination hypothesis says that extinction takes longer after intermittent reinforcement because it is harder to distinguish or discriminate between extinction and an intermittent schedule than between extinction and continuous reinforcement, right? Basically the same thing. All right, this one's a little complicated. The frustration hypothesis is another way to look at the discrimination hypothesis. It describes how non-reinforcement of previously reinforced behavior is frustrating. Okay? And frustration is an aversive emotional state. And behavior that reduces an aversive state is considered to be negatively reinforced. So you can look at the discrimination hypothesis as avoidance of frustration. Yet another way to look at it is through sequential hypothesis. Extinction occurs more readily in continuous reinforcement because the sequence of behavior and reinforcement has become a signal of sorts. When that signal is missing, extinction occurs rapidly. The response unit hypothesis offers yet another explanation. It focuses on the response being defined as the total number of behaviors that require a reinforcement. From this viewpoint, intermittent schedules do not result in resistance to extinction because the number of responses is actually smaller if the number of behaviors required to get the reinforcement are chunked together as one response unit. Let me say that once more for you. The response unit hypothesis says that intermittent schedules do not result in resistance to extinction because they actually have a fewer number of responses if you consider the responses as chunks. When individuals are given a choice between two reinforced behaviors, it becomes difficult to predict which behavior they may choose. The matching law states that the distribution of behaviors will match the availability of reinforcement. In other words, given two schedules, a fixed ratio of 30 or a fixed ratio of 40, the subject will sample each and then settle on the denser schedule. Consider a football player in high school who wants to go to college and he wants playing time. Is he going to go to the school that already has two excellent athletes in his position? Or is he going to go to a smaller school where he knows he's going to get more playing time? That's sort of the idea we're working with here. In the same way, a rat will press a lever for a fixed interval of 10 minutes instead of a fixed interval of 30 minutes. If you're still listening, you showed resilience. We take a moment to call this what it is. It is dense. The four basic schedules are the most important. However, in psychology, those who study an area become detail-oriented and explore every crevice and corner of their field of expertise. So we have lots of variations on reinforcement schedules. Don't worry, I will direct you toward the information that is most important. My class is about main ideas and the most important concepts rather than memorization of every possible detail. You'll need to trust me to bring you back to this information and help point you toward what to study for a test. I'll see you at Chapter 8.